Tactile wires, 4 or 5 double-pointed needles, a knitting belt, graph book and yarn, and having already counted out the number of gang or rows required, you cast on the stitches for the basque, or rib. These are a few of the everyday words which have almost disappeared from our language. If we visited someone for a cuppa and a chat, we did tactile wires, and we talked and knitted, and this was totally accepted. Nowadays it could be seen as antisocial. In the past, there was little opportunity of paid work for the women, so knitting became a very important part of the family income, all girls learning from an early age and quickly earning a few pennies. Unlike today, there were very few sheep on the crofts, cows being of greater importance for the families, but each croft did have a hill share. The Shetland sheep have perfect fleeces for spinning, many different natural colours, murret, Shetland black and various greys, and white, which could be also home dyed. Then there was the carding and spinning to be done before a garment was cast up. As time passed, fleeces were then posted to hunters of Brora and came back as heads of the required colours of wool. Each head was divided into hanks, which were then usually held out on a bairn's arms while mother wound the yarn into a clew or a ball of wool. This was a wearisome task for the child. In the 1960s, the first knitting machines arrived in the Isle. These were worked by the men and could only knit ribs and plain knitting. Some garments were knitted for a factory in Lerwick, but the return was small. They did, however, give an opportunity for the fashionable yoked jumpers to be knitted on the Isle. Also, having your ribs knitted on the machine helped speed up the knitting of other garments. Once into the 1970s, there were fewer hand knitters, and concern was raised that the skill and patterns could be lost. Hand-frame knitting machines, which could knit Fair patterns, were now on the market. These machines did not replace the hands-on skills. Each garment has to first have the size and colours calculated, and once knitted, there is the skill of the finisher to sew the pieces together, followed by the grafting on of the neck and the cuffs. Once the garment is washed and on the jersey board, the appearance is very similar to one of a hand-knitted jersey. It was then decided in the early 1980s to set up Fair Crafts. With grant aid, a number of people got together, formed a cooperative, buying 6 Knitmasters knitting machines. We had 2 weeks of training, some as knitters, the rest as finishers. We concentrated mainly on all-over patterned cardigans, jumpers and sleeveless garments for private made-to-measure orders. Over the years, some people left, but training was available so others joined. Fair Crafts saw many knitters and continued until the mid-2000s. Throughout this period, cones of wool were first bought from hunters of Brora. Then, the 1980s saw a spinning mill start in Shetland. Gradually, as their colours increased, all of our cones became Shetland spun. Now, in 2022, it is good to see that knitting is still healthy in Fair Isle, providing an income for a number of women, but also new knitters and finishers.